Welcome to the Marriage Counselor's Corner. Right this way. Your therapist will see you shortly. In the meantime, sit back, kick your feet up on the couch, and get ready to focus on adding very valuable tools to your marriage toolkit. And now your host and marriage counselor, David Taylor.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Marriage Counselor's Corner podcast. My name is David Taylor, and I am your host. Listen, if you are new to this podcast, to the Marriage Counselor's Corner podcast, you have come to the right place. I'm getting so many people share their feedback, and so many people reach out to me via email, and it's an exciting time for this podcast. And I just would like to thank you guys for coming here every other week. You're joining me on the couch. And hey, if you are here, you've come to the place where you're going to get credible and tangible marriage-related information from a licensed mental health counselor. Now, over my past almost 2 decades of clinical experience, I have discovered some things that work to make your marriage healthy. So, I want you to see these episodes as a masterclass in marriage where I take a psychological and practical approach to marriage education and enrichment. And that's right. This is all about enriching your marriage with information, tools, and resources that will take it to the next level. Now, this is episode number 27. And in today's session, I will be discussing a topic that this is often a point of contention for many husbands. And this is also something that is desired by most wives. So if you've already seen by the title, this is going to be a little bit of a controversial subject matter that I will be discussing today. And if you haven't saw the title, which I know you have, I will be discussing the hotly disputed topic of happy wife, happy life. But before y'all tune out, I will be coming at this from the vantage point of a seasoned professional, from the vantage point of an expert in the field of marriage and relationship management. So this is not just me giving my opinion. I'm not going to just be another talking head, but rather my approach will be based off of certain marriage principles, or further yet, a philosophy on marriage. Okay, so just stick with me. I'm not here just to tickle your earlobes and entertain you. I want to also inform you. So husbands, listen, I really want you, everybody, all the husbands in the room, come to the front. Come to the front of the classroom, because this is really going to be for you to listen, to grasp on, to absorb, and then to execute. And wives, I also want you to pay close attention. You don't have to sit in the front, hang back, go in the back, chill out. Don't be back there talking all loud, because sometimes we can hear y'all, okay? Pay attention, take some notes. But this is really going to be for the husbands to lock in, okay? So brothers, fellas, lock in. And as perhaps is becoming my custom, this episode will be more of a conversation. Again, I just want to talk to you. Okay, we're not going to do lecture style right now. I just want to have a conversation as I attempt to settle this dispute once and for all. I will be relying on you, my listeners, to take this information and counter all of the ignorance and misinformation that is often associated with this statement. So once you get this stuff, don't sit on it, share it, discuss it, debate it, but don't let ignorance prevail. It's your job to take this information, to apply it, and then to share it, to disseminate it, okay? Now, before we get started, I would like to read one of my newest reviews from a recent listener. And I really enjoyed receiving this one. So thank you, whoever you are that wrote this. It touched my heart. So I appreciate it. So this particular listener, they wrote, like chatting with a wise friend over coffee. I absolutely love this podcast. It feels like sitting down with a best friend who's been married for over 20 years, having a heart-to-heart over coffee. They listen to your issues, aren't afraid to call you out when needed and offer practical advice to help you improve. The insights are grounded in personal experience, and the weekly action tips are great for helping you grow in the topics discussed. Well, whoever you are, I really enjoyed that, right? Y'all know my love language is words of affirmation. So that was really affirming to hear that they found comfort and, almost a kinship in these episodes. And listen, whoever you are, you ain't got to hide behind Apple iTunes. Text me, email me. If you are local, let's go get some coffee. Okay, let's talk, let's chat. I would like to answer any questions that you guys may have. So anyway, thank you for that. And if you are a listener, don't be afraid to submit your rating and your review. You can go to wherever you subscribe to your podcast and leave one there. And I appreciate the momentum. I've been getting more ratings and reviews over the last couple of weeks. So I really appreciate you guys for doing that, because after all, that's how this podcast grows. So now to the matter at hand. See, ironically enough, I was actually asked my professional opinion about this statement, the statement of happy wife, happy life. I was actually asked this statement twice in the past week from two different clients. So I was asked once from a husband during a marriage counseling session. And I think he was asking this question as a way for me to ally with him to kind of prove a point. And then I was asked in an individual session from a wife this exact question. And so typically when that happens, there's a pattern. I'm like, okay, this needs to be discussed and I need to bring it to my podcast. So actually, thank you to the wife who kind of gave me the motivation and the encouragement to talk about this topic, because she was excited to hear me go deeper into it. So I hope you are ready to get what you have asked for, because I'm about to go deep. So anyway, being asked this question, what it did was it forced me to put into words a philosophy about marriage that I have found to be extremely effective. Now, this again is not my opinion. This is a philosophy that I've found through research, through trial, through error, through experience. I found this to be very effective. So, why is this information important? Why am I even taking the time to do a podcast episode on such a polarizing topic? Well, first, there are a lot of misconceptions pertaining to how marriage should be experienced, how marriage should feel, how marriage should function, and I would like to deal with those misconceptions. See, we often marry our spouses looking to obtain something from them, looking to have a certain experience with them. Often what we want gets in the way of what we receive, and then that impacts what we see. So my job is to help deal with that misconception and the misinformation, the ignorance around this statement. Also, I believe if people truly understood what marriage was about, what the role and function of a husband and role and function of a wife was really about, what those roles were about, perhaps we would at best do better. And at the very least, we would wait to get married until we were properly prepared and equipped to embark on such a journey. But I digress, because I could stay there for as long as I need to, but let me keep going further. Let me share a bit of a side note before I move into the heart of this matter. First, you should be asking yourself difficult questions that challenge your beliefs on a particular topic, whether it's politically, whether it's with your theology, whether it's academically, whether it's whatever, financially. You should be asking yourself difficult questions that challenge your existing belief system. Okay? I truly believe that this is the best way to grow past your current position. So if you're interested in growing further, you have to be asking harder questions. Not questions that support your belief system, not questions that incubate where you are, but questions that will stretch you, that will challenge you, okay? I see this firsthand all the time while homeschooling my 6-year-old daughter. And no, I'm not comparing you to my 6-year-old daughter, but the learning process is the same, right? Once she reaches a certain level of understanding as her teacher, I hit her with a new question. to challenge and even shape what she currently knows. And you have to be like this as a spouse in order to grow or in order to continue to grow, right? Secondly, the more I teach and counsel on marriage, the more I am finding that you will need a philosophy on marriage just to survive the hardships that accompany marriage. Your philosophy is the thing that will get you through those hard times. And perhaps what I'll do now that I'm talking about this, perhaps I will spend more time in the future, or in a future session at least, speaking more exclusively about this philosophy on marriage and why it's so important. But for the sake of this episode, you will hear me reference this concept in a bit as it pertains to this topic. So, what does the statement, happy wife, happy life, actually mean? Well, first off, let me just dive in and let me just talk. Can I just talk to you? Let me just talk for a little bit. Don't judge me. Don't judge what I say. Just listen, okay? Because I'm going to say some stuff that may trigger some. But first off, this statement is often stated in a careless manner. Okay? I'm just going to be honest. Typically, when people say happy life, happy wife, they're being careless with their words with this. And then it's rejected by men who hear this, and after carrying an already skewed perspective of marriage, of what it means to be a husband, they then hear this and then they immediately create a narrative or go on a tangent about why this is, an unhealthy statement. So I'm taking the time to say this because it is often misused and misinterpreted right out the gate. It's like this statement doesn't even get a fair shot at being exegeted properly because right out the gate, it's being misused and then misinterpreted. And here's the thing. When it is stated, it is often meant to suggest that if the men only focused on securing their wives' happiness, then their lives would be happy, right? So that's really what is insinuating is, husband, if you focus on securing your wife's happiness, if you focus on making her happy, then you will be happy. Now, if you can't already tell, the problem with this statement is, again, it is very careless. And pardon me for going on a little bit of a technical rant, but this statement is shrouded in one main fallacy, okay? It assumes. I could put a period there and just say it assumes, okay? But I'm going to go further. It assumes, and whenever you assume, you make, okay, I'm not going to finish that statement, but it assumes, it assumes that everyone who hears this statement automatically knows what happiness means. Also, right, let me keep going. So it's almost as if I'm saying to you that I am banking on you knowing what I am inferring when I use the word happiness. This then forces you to wrestle with your opinion on your personal role to determine happiness for your wife. And I'm not done. And then because we are using the same word twice in this statement, happy wife, happy life, no one is giving or receiving any real clarity on whether the first happy and the second happy means the same thing. Now, I know. Yes, I'm being a little technical, but just walk with me for a second, okay? Maybe for you feel that it's not that deep, but there is a but here. I believe that the language that we use shapes how we interact with our world. And to a greater degree, the language that we use, it shapes how we show up in our marriages. So let's tackle this together, okay? So that we can settle this debate once and for all. See, I made that simple statement so complex, but it really is insinuating a lot beneath the surface. So this is why I'm taking the time. And I'm going to handle this in 2 steps, right? This is where I would like to introduce to you one of my philosophies on marriage. So let's go a little further. Step 1 is this. before you agree or disagree with this statement, you first must ask a better question. And I just was talking about that earlier. When someone says happy wife, happy life, before you give your opinion, before you even think about what you want to say, you will first want to ask what they mean by happy wife. And what do they also mean by happy life? It is imperative that you get clarity on this first before you give your opinion, before you say what you want to say, get on your soapbox, before you dust off that soapbox. It is imperative that you ask better questions first. Otherwise, you will most likely run the risk of agreeing with a major misinterpretation. See, most likely no one would have ever asked them that question. Okay? No one most likely have ever asked them, what do you mean when you say happy wife? And what do you mean when you say happy life? Because again, this statement is often used in a flippant and careless manner. So get them to tell you what they mean by this statement first. Not just so that you can understand their stance, but so that you can move to the next step in this process. And this, for me, this next step is at least the most fun part of the process. This is where I get to go a little deeper. I get to nerd out some. So strap up, get your notebooks, and let's get to work. Because, see, when a husband says this statement and I get to share with them this next part, I notice that their energy shifts very quickly. And recently, when asked in a session by a husband, here was my approach to using this as a teaching opportunity. Husbands and wives, hear me clearly. The office of a husband is the most important and most sacred role that a man can and will ever have. The only other position that is comparable is that of a father. See, as a husband, I am protector, I am provider, I am a father figure, and I am king of my domain. Write those things down, okay? Please, husbands. I am protector, I am provider, I am a father figure, and I am king of my domain. Now, taken out of context, those words may offend some. So let me elaborate. See, as the protector of my wife, I am ultimately responsible for her physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial safety. Whereas my wife is highly capable of doing many of these things for herself, if not all of these things for herself, she nominated me. She put me in that position. She chose me to oversee these things for her. Therefore, I am ultimately responsible for how she feels inside of the marriage. It is my duty and obligation to ensure that I am not responsible for her feeling unsafe. So what this means is if she feels unsafe in the marriage, it can't be because of something that I did or did not do. And by the way, I'm not the authority on what she needs to feel safe, right? So I'm responsible for how safe she feels, but I'm not the authority on what she needs in order to feel safe. It is her job to educate me on the things that she needs in order to feel safe. It is her job to educate me on these things, and it is my job to execute within the best of my ability. That is my job as the protector. Now, as the provider, I take it upon myself to ensure that what she needs, she has. Again, she is more than capable of doing this for herself and was doing this for herself prior to us even meeting. But as the nominated provider for the Taylor household, it is up to me to ensure that this process is overseen efficiently. Again, language is important here, fellas. Language is important. I am not exclusively responsible for giving her what she wants. That is more of a collaborative approach. That is more of a collaborative effort that we both work towards. Instead, I learn her needs because, as one of the 37 laws of mastering marriage states, I am a student of my spouse. I am her pupil. So I learn her needs. And then I take that information and I create an environment within the garden of my marriage that is conducive for those needs to be met. Some needs I can meet personally. Other needs are up to her to meet. My job is to make sure that the garden of our marriage can sustain that process. That's me as the provider. Now, this next one may ruffle some feathers, so I need y'all to listen closely. Resist the temptation to create your own opinion until you hear everything that I have to say about this next one. Because you did hear me clearly when I said I am, as a husband, I am also a father figure to my wife. Hear me closely. See, wives, I saw y'all perk up in the back. I know y'all listening now. See, I got your attention. I need you to hear me on this one because this will bless you if you receive it correctly. Yes, as a husband, I am also a father figure. Now, let's walk this out. See, as a father figure, I am obligated to nurture my wife in a manner similar to how her father did/does. Because if he's still actively involved in her life, he's still nurturing her as a father would to a daughter. So I am obligated to nurture my wife in a manner similar to how her father does for her or did for her. Or hopefully she had a healthy version of a father. If not, she's going to have some skewed perceptions of that. This statement may trigger her a little bit. It may trigger you a little bit, husbands. Hear me clearly. I am not her dad. Say it with me. I am not her dad. I am not my wife's dad. I am a father figure to her. Hear me clearly. That does not mean that I tell her what to do. That means that the essence of a father I give to my wife. See, some of you guys have never had a healthy father. And so when I say the essence of a father, you're going to get all kinds of misconstrued notions and just things that come up that's not healthy. Okay. And I understand that, which is why I'm having this conversation with you. The essence of a father, of a healthy father, I give to my wife. So let's break this down a little further. So think about it this way, and this is what happened on our wedding day. Some weddings are a little different, some cultures are a little different, but on our wedding day, a powerful transaction happened that most people overlook. See, I was standing at the front of the altar, and her dad, Mandy's dad, walked her down the aisle and handed her over to me. See, this was a symbolic transition that signified that she was now under my jurisdiction and not his. She got my last name and not his, right? She had his last name. Now she became a Taylor, my last name, okay? I didn't get her last name. It's not David Robinson, which would have been my last name, which I guess would have been cool because there's a basketball player that's David Robinson. No, it's David Taylor, Amanda Taylor, right? And her father, he was entrusting her to me to do for her what he was no longer responsible to do. She, in a sense, became my responsibility, right? They even ask, who gives this person away? The father says, I do. The last I do, though, is the husband. When the vows are said, there's a transaction, a shift, an exchange happens. And if you lived in certain cultures hundreds or thousands of years ago, this would make perfect sense. See, some of you may not like this language because you are used to abuse, abandonment, neglect, irresponsible leadership, and unsafe marriages. You're used to this stuff. And my heart breaks for you. My heart breaks for you guys because you have but only a fraction of the original version of what a healthy marriage was intended to be. You only have a fraction of what it means to have a healthy father, right? And I didn't grow up with that. I have my father in my life now, but growing up, I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't see an example, a model. So I didn't know, oh, this is what the transaction is supposed to look like. And the husband is supposed to be in the position of the father. Now, I'm not raising my wife. I'm not disciplining my wife. I'm not changing her diapers because she ain't in diapers, okay? But the essence of a healthy father I give to my wife. So my language is not about being possessive, okay? Mandy is not my property. If anything, I feel more like her property, but we ain't going to get there. We ain't going to go there. She is equal in my value. She's equal in value. She is equal in value. Hear that point. But not function. Hear that point. She is equal in value, but not function. And that's by choice. Okay? That's by choice. Despite this truth, I, as the husband, have to see her as having the greater value. And that, my friends, is why I would give my life to protect hers. Because I'm only going to do that for someone who I see as a greater value, right? And so she has a greater value, which is why I sacrifice my life for hers. That's the job. That's what I signed up for. So this leads me to the last trait that I mentioned about being a husband. And I hope this is resonating with you guys, or at least turning the wheels. I hope you're thinking about this. But this last thing I mentioned is a huge one. Hear me clearly. I am the king of my domain. Yes, I know. I live here in America where the language of a king has a skewed connotation. So let me elaborate on what I mean. My marriage is my Eden. Hopefully this language is starting to sound familiar. My marriage is my Eden, the place where I am supposed to mirror God's nature the most. Now, for my atheist listeners, stay with me. As a matter of fact, some of y'all need to be emailing me so that we can talk about this stuff, because I don't want you to just be stuck indifferent because you disagree. I want you to ask questions so that we can go deeper, right? This is what we do when we learn and grow. We go deeper, okay? My marriage is my Eden. This is the place where I am supposed to mirror God's nature the most. I am supposed to serve my wife, to uplift her well-being, and to ensure that whatever she needs, she has according to my ability to provide that for her. I am not just her covering. I am the foundation that holds the weight of the family up. That's why you have to be strong. I am the foundation. Okay? She's the backbone. She's the heart. And in some cases, perhaps the brains. But I am the foundation. I am the covering. I hold this thing up. I have to. It's my job. She nominated me for that. And her dad put me in the position to do that for her. Okay? So it's my job. And I take it serious. But hear me clearly. More specifically, my job is to ensure that the garden of our marriage creates the greatest opportunity for her to thrive in all facets of life. Some of y'all are missing some of this. So let me go a step further because I want you to hear me clearly. This is my only responsibility. I can only operate in the manner that contributes to the creating of the most optimal conditions for her growth, for her flourishing, and for her overall well-being. However, there's a caveat here. However, what she decides to do with that environment is up to her, and thus outside of the range of my responsibilities. So theoretically, I create an environment to make it easier for her to be happy. It is up to her, though, to manage that environment correctly. So husbands, hear me when I say this. Take this to heart. You are responsible for the heavy and often stressful task of ensuring that your garden, your marriage, has all it needs to produce healthy fruit. That is your responsibility. I want my wife to be happy. I just can't make her happy. I want her to be happy. I can't make her happy. But I can make the environment conducive for her happiness. Hopefully you see how this works. I want her to be happy. I can't make her happy, but I can make the environment conducive for her happiness. That is why anybody that ever have visited our household, the Taylor household, you will never leave unhappy if I could help that. That's why when y'all come hang out, anybody that comes and ever spends time with us, you'll feel it. You'll see. You ain't going to leave here unhappy. I challenge anyone. Go to my Facebook page and scroll down. Shouldn't be that far to scroll down to my video that I posted on July the 1st. It's from my recent birthday party. And you'll see what exactly I am saying when I talk about how this environment, this house environment, it's conducive for happiness. And this is what you will feel if you were to ever come over to our house. We're goofy. We love to have fun. We love to have, intellectual conversations. We love to nurture, to love on people. And this environment is conducive for all of those things to grow. Now, wives, hear me clearly. It is up to you to grow. It is up to you to thrive. And by the way, wives, there will be some of you who won't be happy regardless of the environment that your husband creates. That is on you to fix. It's on you to do the work to grow. You can't be anxious because of your brokenness and then expect for your husband to fix that. That's not his job. See, most men dislike the happy wife, happy life statement because they think that it is not a fair statement. And on the contrary, this is actually a very fair statement if you really understand what it's communicating. Remember, my fellow husbands, my leaders, leadership is not about equality. Leadership and being a husband is not about equality. Equality means that everyone is treated the same exact way, regardless of differences or specific needs. Instead, being a husband is about equity. So not equality, but equity. And I know these are technical nuances, but they're not the same word. They don't mean the same. Equity means that everyone is provided the specific resources that they will need in order to be successful. Equity is about efficiency. So you get what you need to maximize your efficiency. That may not be the same that someone else gets. See, this is a completely different way of viewing your marriage. It is an equitable partnership. Marriage is an equitable partnership. One where I will have more responsibilities in certain areas and my wife will have more responsibilities in other areas. See, I learned from her what she needs from the garden the most that will contribute to her happiness. And then, because I am the head, because I am the foundation, I get to work creating the environment that is conducive for said happiness. It is my job. That's me patting my chest. It's my job. It is my obligation. It is my privilege. See, and I'm almost done here. Healthy husbands understand the weight of that role and are in alignment with fulfilling those obligations. Lastly, and this needs to be said, I'm going to shout this from the rooftop, and then I'm going to say I said what I said. Anyway, let me stop. Let me keep going. Let me stay focused. Lastly, your happiness in life should not be relegated to the happiness of your wife, husband, and vice versa. So my happiness in life should not be relegated to my wife's happiness. But because we are husbands, there will ultimately be some bleed over. Her happiness will impact your state of being, whether you like it or not. This is how it works when two become one. Her happiness will impact your state of being. Your happiness will impact her state of being. And this is just how it works, right? So Mandy, her happiness will impact my state of being and vice versa. See, listen, the wisest man once said this. He once went on record to say this. One of his many proverbs. He said this: that it is better to live in a corner of the roof of your house than to share your house with a contentious wife. Right? So he was saying a lot with that statement. So I'll let you guys interpret that, go exegete that on your own. But he was saying it's better to live in a corner of the rooftop of your house than to live in a house with a contentious wife. So don't tell me that you're not going to be impacted by your wife and her happiness because, well, there it is. The wisest man said this. Anyway, let me keep going. So whether or not you like this, when you two married each other, you gave the other person permission to impact how you experience your marriage. You can't make your wife happy. That is not your job. You can't make your husband happy. That is not your job. Okay? Wives, he can't make you happy. That is not his job. You, wife, are responsible for obtaining your own happiness. Husbands, you are responsible for cultivating an environment that makes this process easier. So, in conclusion, I already have happiness. However, I am happier when my wife is happy. So, perhaps the saying should go, happy wife, happier life. Okay, so let me rest my case here, Your Honor. Let me wrap up here because I could stay here for a long time. And I would love to hear some feedback from you guys. But of course, this is a one-sided conversation for now. But let me wrap up here. And it is my hope that this information will help you to shape how you position yourself inside of your marriage. Now, as my custom, I want to give you an action item. And I want you to answer the following questions. Let me start with the husbands. So husbands, if you are a husband, I want you to answer this question or questions. What impact am I having on whether or not the garden of my marriage is conducive for my wife's happiness? What impact am I having on whether or not the garden of my marriage is conducive for my wife's happiness? And if I ask her this question, how would she answer it? So if I asked her that question, what would she say in response? I want you to answer that, husbands. And wives, if you are a wife, I want you to answer this question. Am I unintentionally making my husband responsible for something that he can't do? Have I made him responsible for my happiness? I need you to answer that. And then I want you to answer this last question. If I were to ask my husband this question, what would he say? There you have it. I'm done, guys. I am all done with this topic. And I want to wrap up here. And I hope that this resonates with you, that you're receiving this. Listen, ask me questions. Send me some of your questions. You can give me a voicemail question if you want. And I want to help answer those, give you more clarity. But I'm going to wrap up here and just know that it is my desire that both you and your spouse use this information to take your marriage to the next level. But you must remember, you get out of your marriage what you put into your marriage, not what you want from your marriage. So get to work putting in the work. Anyways, guys, I want to say thank you for coming to your session at the Marriage Counselor's Corner. Join me in 2 weeks for episode number 28, where we will talk about another very important topic that you don't want to miss out on. And lastly, please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and leave me an honest rating and review. That way others can have access to these episodes as well. And it will greatly impact how visible these podcast episodes are to other people who may have never heard of the Marriage Counselor's Corner. Anyway, go out there and be smart, be intentional, and stay out of trouble. I'll talk to you guys soon. Deuces.
Thanks for stopping by for your seat on the couch at the Marriage Counselor's Corner. Remember, go to marriagecounselorscorner.com to schedule your next session. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that you never miss a session. We look forward to having you back on the couch soon. Bye-bye now.